All right, y'all. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for joining. So, just to start off, let me tell you that I did have a little bit of a time. I'm like, do I really want to call this the forgotten years, right? Is that really right? Because it might make people have certain feelings like, what, forgotten? They're right here, just all the things. So, but the reality is, when we're talking about the forgotten years, is just because sometimes this age range is overlooked. And we're going to talk about what I mean when I say it's overlooked or they don't have the necessarily, right? They don't necessarily have all the supports in place as a lot of other age groups and age ranges do. So, again, thank y'all for joining. And we're going to make sure we're very clear about how we got this name, who we're talking about as tweens, because a lot of times that age range, it might be a little surprising to people, right? Sometimes people may guess incorrectly for the ages we're talking about. So, again, first and foremost, when we're saying the forgotten years, not truly forgotten, but a bit overlooked because of the resources, support, or what people feel like is needed at that time. Okay, so for one, what we're talking about and thinking about summer learning is usually maybe like early readers, making sure that we're getting their phonics, their phonetic practice in. We're making sure that they have the number sense, right? Nailing those place values, comparing, starting with it, adding and subtracting, so we can be ready to add those other layers, multiplying, dividing, all of that. So that happens very early on in education. Then it kind of jumps again to another level of intensity, if you will, when it comes time for high school, right? When they're supposed to have a certain level of essay that they're able to generate, they're able to draft, go through the different layers of the writing process, able to evaluate and synthesize all these things. Maybe we're at algebra 2 and some pre-cal, so it's a lot more. Um, I just want to say intensity, but rigor that's happening. So they're putting a lot more skills together in high school. So with a lot more skills, a lot more support shows up as well, right? But when it comes time for also for high school, then maybe there's some more support for dual credits. Maybe some people are doing some credit recovery. So a lot of support is happening again on the front end and on the back end. But the middle years, in between, our tweens are sometimes forgotten. So they're sometimes the forgotten group. And when I say tweens, let me say this. It's tweens and really early teens. So that includes middle school. So tweens starting at about 9, going to early teens to about 14. Sometimes they get the short end of the stick, right? We know they're still growing. We know they still need guidance. And maybe their opinions got a little louder, right? Because they're feeling themselves, they know a little more, and maybe they've seen some TikToks that they want to talk to you about because they saw it on TikTok and they're trying to share their learning, right? But these things are happening, right in their space. So in their space, we also see and hear that maybe the tweens, early teens, maybe they're too old for typical kid strategies, and again, they're not yet getting all those extra built in supports that high schoolers get. But their math struggles, the changes that they're going through emotionally, y'all, they're very real. And sometimes they seem amplified because they're at home mostly during the summer, but they were there the whole time, but it's very visible during the summer. So I wonder if, and y'all let me know in the chat if you heard this before. Y'all let me know if you heard about the drop off that happens in math confidence between fifth grade and eighth grade. So that's right around what we're talking about, right? If we say 9, so that's about fourth, fifth grade through eighth grade. There's a math confidence that drop off. There's a drop off in their math confidence. So between fifth and eighth grade, you all, there's literally something. There's a Dr. Kunjufu. He talks about the fourth grade syndrome. That's what he calls it because he checked in on students at the beginning of fourth grade and then at the beginning of seventh grade, and the drop off is astounding, quite honestly. But again, what happens is maybe they're showing some proficiency. A couple things we look for. right? They show some proficiency. They're showing you that okay, I can read, I can sound out words. So, okay, right, reading is going okay. Oh, are you adding and subtracting? Oh, you're even multiplying a little bit. Okay, that's good. So that same again intensity and almost super focus, hyper focus of support doesn't happen in those middle years. And sometimes we get a little relaxed, right? Because of their independence, but still needing that structure. And it's a balance that not everyone is focusing on, not everyone is aware of, but it has to happen. And that's the only way that we can actually combat that drop off, that fourth grade syndrome, that math confidence decline. And we talked about this before that some people, and the numbers are speeding up, I'm going to say, that at the age of 6 and in first grade, about 70% of children are showing some kind of sign of math anxiety. 70% at the age of 6. So can you imagine by the time they get to this fourth grade, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth that we're talking about, how checked out they may be if we're not careful, if we're not showing up with the same intensity of support and checking in. So that fourth grade syndrome, they said that's when students kind of maybe different reasons, right? Different things are happening emotionally and concerning their identity, right? They may be learning certain lessons from society, I'll say. They start sitting at a different spot in the class, right? Not everyone is so excited to be at the front anymore. It's like, maybe they're starting to figure out or form their opinion, I should say, for who gets math and who are math people and who aren't. So I'm sitting at the back now. I'm not raising my hand. I'm not asking questions to try to better understand. A lot of these habits show up. So a lot of people think about it not till like eighth grade, right? Late middle school or high school, but it showed up before that. Were we really recognizing and looking for it the same? Were we paying attention the same? So that's what we're talking about today. Just the importance of what to look for and why. Y'all, because yes, they're old enough to be left alone, but they're still young enough, again, that they need structure. And especially when it comes to learning and mindset, those are their biggest areas, their biggest jumps that they're having. So, no, they may not be tested the way high schoolers are, right? But again, they're seen as more independent. But again, their emotional their emotional shifts are happening, right? Because they're able to name more feelings. We're past sad, mad, and glad, and their identity in terms of like who they are or who they are perceiving others perceive them to be. Like all of these layers of identity are starting to come in. They're starting to download to their young systems. So again, some of the common math mindsets are starting to whirl around a little more. Like, oh, I'm just not good at this. This really doesn't even matter. Or I hate math. All of this comes up in these forgotten years, this middle span of life, of early life. So I want y'all to tell me, check in the chat, what mood swings or resistance have you seen already, right? Especially at these ages, what mood swings, what resistance, what pushback do you get most often at this age? Okay. Or you can even chime in on and let us know what's something that your tween, remember tween, we say really starts at about 9 and it goes through early teens. It's about 9 to 14. What's something that your tween has said or done recently that reminded you, yeah, they're still growing, right? That again, that emotional shift, the identity shift is developing. More independence came, but we still have some more to go for sure. Okay, someone says sometimes they don't want assistance. Yeah, and that's going to happen at every phase. That's going to happen at every phase. So, and the thing about that, and it's always like a balance, right? But when they're at that age and they're prepping for adolescence, right? Because adolescence is more like it's a fine line. It's a little bit of an overlap. It's about 13 to 25. Yes, all of that is adolescence. I know. That's another talk. That's another talk. But it's the positioning of the assistance. If it's like, well, let me help you, they know they don't want that. Right. But if we can ask them some questions to guide, if it's like, oh, okay, well, I see you, you're working on blank. Are you going to do the such and such method or such as, like, you give them some options, like you're really giving them some hints, but not directly saying, let me help you. So they still feel like they chose and they're doing it, which is fine, but you help give them some guidance along the way because they still need some structure, as we said, especially for learning and mindset things. So yeah, but a lot of kids, this happens at so many ages, right? Where there's hard lines, they don't want assistance, they feel like they know enough. But it's going to be about how you position the assistance, how you ask them. So we understand the struggle. So some of the struggles they're having when it comes to their math learning, because we're talking about the math side and emotions, they're moving from. So we have three phases of math, right? We call it concrete, representation, and then the abstract. So in the concrete state, that's when they're able to touch and move everything. So think about, this is when you're building with like your fraction blocks, your fraction tiles. This is when you are even maybe even taking out the ruler, a real ruler, and measuring, right? You have something to touch to help connect to the math skill, the math concept. Then representation is when you draw more pictures to represent, right? This is where you might draw your own rectangle and split it and do some shading to represent the fraction instead of actually having fraction pieces to touch. And then abstract is just like straight word problem, and we're applying those other two, right? We're past you touching it, we're past drawing the picture, maybe. And then, okay, we're in word problem land. So that transition, that can be tough. And really, it's not that the other phases are not existent. They just aren't there usually as much, right? Because we still need to go through the process, right? At every age and every stage, we still should go through that process. But what you'll find is in math learning, when they start hitting this middle stride, these years we're talking about, is a drastic dip. It's a drastic decline in how much the concrete and representation stages are taken. Time is taken on those. So if I'm going from, okay, I just finished, building fractions in third grade. I have models. I'm touching it, and now you want me to add fractions, and we're just jumping straight to working on the problem. I didn't touch anything. I don't know what you're talking about. And I thought I was supposed to build fractions. Why I don't build it anymore? So this leap it causes its own struggles, right? So this is on the math learning side. One of the things. So the comparison trap, again, this is where maybe we started even shifting, right? When we get to choose where we sit in class, we start to shift where we choose to sit, because I'm noticing that some people seem to get this a little faster. Some people seem to be good while others are bad at math. Okay. This is also at home / you hear in some of the classroom, well, why do I even need this? Right? If you're not careful and if we're not doing those real world examples and connections, they're like, when do we even use this? Why do I need this? Why is that a thing? Why does that happen? So we talked last week again about this skill set amnesia, right? So skill set amnesia is when adults forget to bring their best tools, their patience, their systems, problem solving from work into their home life. And so it shows up obviously in some of these math conversations and situations as well. If you're an educator parent, right, check in, let me know. Say so in the chat, in the comments. If you're an educator parent, here's some examples to kind of solidify, right? To kind of frame skill set amnesia. You're used to building a great lesson plan at work, but at home, you might say, okay, just do this worksheet to get your practice. Maybe you scaffolded your writing for students, what you tell your child. I mean, just figure it out. Just, right? So sometimes pushing the independence a little sooner when it's clear and they're asking for support. So traditional parents, non-education parents, maybe you created this detailed project, right, with timelines and reports for work, but you tell your child, well, you should have started earlier. But did we help them break down the chunks? Just like you work backwards for work, did you help your child work backwards to get their major deadlines and timelines and tasks done, right? Um, Maybe if you work in nursing or healthcare, you assess the different symptoms and patiently walk patients through their next step. But when your child gets stuck on a math problem, you say, you know this already, just do it. You did it already. So same thing, right? We can listen and hear their strategies and figure out where to start walking them through their next steps. Customer service. Oh yeah, I have examples for what? I have a lot of examples, okay, for everybody, just to kind of put it in perspective for how we should and could be using those tools from work to help at home. Maybe you work in customer service or sales. So you handle tough questions and you adjust your tone based on who you're talking to and what they say. But you respond to your child's frustration when you hear your child is frustrated. Why are you crying again? Right? So it's a critical response. If you work in logistics, operations, right? So you know how to reroute when things don't go as planned at work. But when your child uses a wrong or incorrect strategy, you say things like, well, that's not how I learned it, right? If we are able to, again, adjust and pivot in other situations at work, we can do this at home, y'all. I'm not finished. I still have more examples based on what your career path might be, because we're talking about this skill set amnesia, and I want it to be super clear this time for what skills we could and should be transferring from work to home, right? Especially as it relates to supporting our students in math. Maybe you're a creative or entrepreneurial parent. So you problem solve on the fly and think outside the box every day. But you shut down your child's method by saying, well, that's a weird way to do it, or that's not how I learned it. What? So we have to make sure we're being consistent. We're practicing, right? As adults, we're still practicing too, but we're practicing being consistent across the board. Maybe you're a stay-at-home parent or caregiver. You juggle dozens of moving pieces daily with patience and care. But when your child asks for help with this math homework, we're still crashing out behind Johnny and these apples and Sunita and these watermelons, right? Well, I don't know anything about that. That's this new math, right? That's a response. Y'all let me know if you got some more perspective about how some of the skills show up, right? For systems, patience, the structure, planning show up at work, but you realize, you know what, I haven't been using that. I haven't been showing, especially my middle years child, right? These forgotten years, I haven't been showing them, modeling for them, supporting them with these skills. Let me know if you got some insight from some of those examples. While y'all are thinking on that, I have another question for you. Have you ever said, well, I'm just not a math person? Have you ever said that in front of a child? Talk to me now. Have y'all ever said that in front of a child? I'm just not a math person. Okay, someone said no. Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. Sometimes it happens though, and sometimes it kind of gets. I can understand some because it might be like at a meet the teacher, and you're like, okay, this is my child's math teacher. Let me just talk to him and just kind of, you're reflecting on some of your own challenges, experiences, and your math learning, and so that comes out, but it comes out in front of your child. So being super careful because that's kind of setting the tone for their expectations, even though maybe they didn't even have any expectations yet, but now it's it's been peppered, right? It's been sprinkled with some fear and some struggle that they may not have had, but now they're expecting to have that because of what they heard you as their adults say. So one of the reasons that we're having this conversation, we also want to talk about like what the tweens, right, that 9 to 14 tweens, young teens, what they need right now. And this is thinking about math and SEL. They need safe ways to struggle without judgment. And I'm gonna pause right here. A lot of adults, a lot of parents have a hard time watching a young person struggle. Now, I'm not saying anything that's like life threatening, anything that is just beyond overwhelming, right? But we know that struggle is literally a part of life, right? There's if we want them to grow, we have to let them struggle while they're figuring out. Like, it's literally a part of learning. There's an official name, an official word for it, everything, right? But there is learning in the struggle. So they have to struggle if we want them to learn, right? There's certain things that adults think about that we want our children to have to be contributing citizens in this world. Then you're going to have to let them struggle through some things while they're learning and embracing and embodying those tasks. So they need safe ways to struggle without judgment. They're going to need some opportunities to connect math to their world. We're going to give examples for all of this. They're going to need some tools to reflect and take ownership, right? Think like your tracking systems. Think about how many of us have different tracking systems we use for different things in our life, whether it's old school paper and pencil. A lot of us have apps that we love. We're tracking things to help us take ownership, to help us reflect. So all of these things, y'all, they're just littler. They're just smaller people. So a lot of the things that we do, we need to be very intentional about including them in these processes, including them in these steps, and helping them understand why these are things that we do. That even still, we have clear routines, clear things that are done consistently, but we can be flexible in the approach to get there, right? That we can be flexible in the thinking. So I've said that this is my example. I say it a lot. Math teach life, right? I'm like, okay, if I need you to get to 4, you can tell me 2 plus 2. You can tell me 1 plus 3. You might tell me -7 plus 3. Did we all get to 4? Yes, we did. Right at the end of the day. So this age, this middle age, this middle middle age, y'all know, these middle young people ages for sure. These are the prime years to have them practice their flexible thinking. They're still very, very creative, but they know some things, right? They know some of the expectations, they know some of the routines. Let them practice their flexible thinking here. Highly encouraged at this age and that stage. So, one of the activities I'm giving you an idea for, we said one of the things they need to do is connect math to their world. Young people love Would You Rather. Let me know if you've ever heard of this. It's like we call it a game, but it's basically like about choices. Have y'all ever heard of Would You Rather? Okay, so someone say yes. Cool, cool. So, would you rather? So, let's say the non math side. I love to play this with kids. I do it on both sides, right? Just general relationship building, so social emotional, and the math side. So, sometimes to pass time slash to kind of reset. If we were in the midst of math, and I'm like, okay, we're having a moment. They need some time to process. So we put that skill on pause for a minute. I might say, hey, would you rather be 3 feet tall or 8 feet tall? What? Tweens. My favorite question for tweens and early teens is, would you rather have to say everything on your mind or never speak again? What? Really quickly, I learned some things about them, right? Especially if it's my first time meeting them. Some of the kids will say, no, I'd rather never speak again. And I'm like, okay, so you have some thoughts. You're trying to keep those to yourself. Noted, right? Or the kids that's like, I would just have to say everything. They're one, maybe they're a little bold, they're a risk taker, but 2, communicating is very important to them. They want people to know and they want to be able to connect with people. So just that one question, we can learn some things really quickly. That's the social emotional side. On the math side, we can flip it because they're used to kind of playing this game. I don't think I've met a tween yet in these past almost 20 years. They're all familiar with Would You Rather. So it can be a real life scenario having to do with like a phone plan. Now, listen, I'm giving you some examples where you might have to explain a little bit. It'll be a little bit of them getting to know you more as an adult and some of the evolution of phones. That's the kind of thing some of them are into as well. Because when we're talking about these phone plans, some of these options, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. For example, would you rather have option A, a phone plan that gives you $10 per week with no rollover? They're going to be like, what's rollover? So you explain it. Then option B, a phone plan that gives you $35 every 3 weeks with no rollover. So which one would you rather? So you see how you brought some math learning into their everyday space, because we know these young people are super serious about their devices, especially if they have a phone. They're super serious. And there's many follow-up questions, right? So one of the things I'm going to do is making sure that you signed up. I'm going to say it again. Make sure that you signed up for the email list, because all of these would you rathers with the follow-up questions to make sure we're bringing math to the tweens and young teens to their world. I have a resource ready for you. Okay. So make sure you're on the email list so you make sure you get it. Would you rather allowance edition, weekly versus task based? Would you rather get $15 automatically every week, no matter what? Or option B, would you rather earn $3 for each chore completed with a max of 6 chores a week? So these are just some examples, you all, just bringing them in, right? Because this is relevant. It's right where they are. One more, this one has to do with social media. You see, for all of these examples, we're connecting things that are important to them, money, right? Their phone, and then social media. So some things that they're actually interested in. We're just tying in some math concepts. And again, we have some follow-up questions where they'll explain how they chose and thinking about the different range. We said we're going from about fourth grade. This is to about eighth, ninth grade. Okay. When we talk about these tweens, these years that are sometimes forgotten. So would you rather, the social media edition has to do with followers versus engagement. So would you rather, option A, gain 100 new followers each week, but only 10% of them ever like or comment? Or option B, gain 30 new followers each week, but 60% actively engage with your content? So y'all, again, all kind of math concepts included, but we're just making sure that we're giving you some ideas, some tasks that are low lift but have high impact, and it's really helping them with their connection and curiosity, right? To kind of reignite that again for math, because sometimes we said that fourth grade syndrome, it kind of starts to drop and level off. They aren't as curious about math. They aren't asking the same kind of questions. They may not see the point, because to an extent they're like, I know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So and what? Right? So we're making sure they see the connections and applications in their spaces, how they can use this information in a lot of different ways. So we also talked about, we were going to make sure that they're clear on the reflection part and how to track it. So it can be a mood tracker, if you will, that has to do with emotions and math effort, some of their mindset. So it could be a simple log that has some columns: how I felt today, how much effort did I give, what did I work on, right? And so maybe how I felt today could be different emojis that they show. How much effort, low, medium, high. Y'all don't make this complicated. Low, medium, high. What I worked on, I solved something, I organized something, I played Pokemon cards, I did some cooking measurements, just all the things. And then one thing I'll try differently tomorrow. You all, this is really purposed to show, to help kids see the patterns, to visualize the patterns between their mood, their effort, and their success. Those middle ages, that's what they need, right? Because sometimes they're having these feelings and they can name the feelings better, but there's still a disconnect as to why that's happening some, right? And as adults, sometimes we're baffled, like, why you don't see that? Because that's how you, that's what, right? They still need that. They still need that connection. So one thought is literally, again, this tracking, it can be a paper that you all create. It could be something, right, you make online and print, but helping them see the pattern between their mood, the effort, and the success, right? If your mood was raggedy, you gave a raggedy effort, then yes, your success was not very high today. Okay. So It's building that self-awareness and that reflection, that metacognition. So, and really, you can track it with anything. You can use tally marks, different ages, use percentages, use bar graphs, several different things. So it'll be a chart, your mood light graph. You can even see and have those questions like, okay, so what trend do you see from this week? Right? What trend did you see from this week? Other connections, right? Bringing in more math connections into their space. They like to watch different videos on YouTube, on TikTok. Okay, so this beat drops every 8 seconds. It's an 8 second video and it is on loop. What is the total time if it loops 5 times? This post got 12.4K likes in 1 hour. How many likes per minute on average? This lady jumped from 300 to 1,200 followers. What's the percent increase? You all just quick questions already using where they are. Okay. So just some more, y'all, I'm calling it buckets of summer support. Maybe, so let me say where this came from. So this buckets of summer support, there is a book that I've been reading pieces of so far. I'll be honest, I haven't finished. I'm reading pieces of it. It's called The Anxious Generation. It is just talking about, the gist of it is that people raising kids now, that they have to work harder to make sure their young people are having certain experiences to help with their confidence, their independence, just their awareness, just because so many things are convenient, tech, that kind of a thing. So something as simple as crossing the street alone, placing your food order, and not DoorDash, right? The young people are very proficient in DoorDash. I mean, actually in person, placing your order, paying for it yourself, that. So it's some things that seem, right, they seem pretty basic. And as adults, you may not even remember it being a big deal in your life, right? Oh, okay, I went to the store and bought some snacks. I knew how much money I had, like I have a budget, bought my snacks, went back home, right? It may not be a pivotal milestone thing for some of us, but for the young people, we have to like literally make it be a thing. We have to make sure that they have this experience. So with that in mind, here's some ideas where we're blending in some of that experience things, the social side, the emotional side, right? So that's developing, but y'all know we had to make sure some math was involved as well, right? So some of the everyday math moments. So again, maybe budgeting for the snack bar at a movie theater, the pool, maybe going to the convenience store. So you have a $20 limit, let them go, right? They'll be estimating depending on the age. That's when we talk about taxes, depending on your state as well, right? Talk about sales tax, all of this. It's a great opportunity to build that number sense. Something else that shows up in this middle years, these young middle years, elapsed time, right? First of all, reading the analog clocks. Reading the analog clocks. Most young people, and I'm gonna have to look up the percentage. I'll say it next time. It's a high percentage that young people only see analog clocks at school. And then some schools have digital clocks, so they only see it in the math class, let me say. They only see it during math time. Because even walking down the hallway, everything is digital, right? My school was built in 20 something, so everything is digitized. And so only in math class do we see an analog clock. And now I have these questions and things I'm expected to know to not just tell time, but to determine elapsed time, how much time passed. So what about if we're planning a day, let them map out the day. Let them figure out how much time needs to pass between activities and how long it's going to take, right? To go from one task to the next. Okay, it should be blank time. If we left the house at 11:15, it takes 38 minutes. What time will it be when we get there? Okay, we need about 10 minutes to walk to get the tickets. And then it says it's about a 75-minute walkthrough experience. So these little things, y'all, let them practice, let them see where the math shows up in their space, bring it to their life. So some of the conversation boosters, we've talked a lot about the questions. We want to talk about making the shift. So instead of, well, no, that's wrong as a response, we flip it and we ask a question back. Well, what's one way to check if that answer makes sense? How can I check this? So, not even giving any indication that it is wrong necessarily, because that's another way you teach them to trust themselves and for them to process and think through. Like it might be incorrect, but you didn't say anything yet. And you kept your poker face on, right? And you just say, okay, well, how can we check this? How can we make sure that this makes sense? Sometimes what happens and starts to show up a lot at this age, these ages, that 9 to 14, the you're so smart starts to take the lead for what they're understanding in their work, right? It starts to take the lead for some of their confidence development. So instead of you're so smart, what if we replace that with, you know what, I really like how you stuck with that. You did a great job. You worked hard on that one. Very good. So especially for young people that maybe are a part of what they call them gifted and talented programs, people that are high achievers, y'all, they definitely connect with the you're so smart and the speed, and it bites them in the middle years. Like maybe they're able to roll, right? Okay, I can just add and subtract really quickly in first grade, second grade, third grade. I figured out this mental math. But the middle years, that's when it gets really tricky in math as well, because that's when they start asking a lot of questions about the opposite. Let me tell you what I mean. A question I was doing with a student this week, it said, how many students, what fraction of students were in class? 1/8 of students were on a field trip. 1/8 of students called in sick. How many students were in class? What fraction of students were in class? So we had to like add and then subtract, right, to see how many were left. But they asked about the knots. So, his first go-to move was, okay, we're just going to add the 1/8 and 1/8, 2/8. I said, but what does the 2/8 represent? So all into fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, this is where they start asking opposites. If you're used to going through quickly and not paying attention and understanding what the different sections mean, you're going to get bitten. You're going to get bitten. And that's where it shows up a lot. And that wrecks confidence. If we're focusing on the speed versus understanding, you're going to speed through and it's probably not going to be correct. If you got used to, it's okay for me to take my time and make sure I understand the problem, you're going to be good and you're less likely to be tricked by the question. And plus, you're not carrying that same weight, that same pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to get this quickly or else I'm not smart. Like that's literally what young people learn. And those, if we're not careful, those early, that 0 to 8, that's what some young people learn. Okay, I got it quickly, I'm smart. But what if is we want you to understand it though, right? Just because you took your time doesn't mean you're not smart. That's not what that means. You speeding through also doesn't mean that you're smart, right? So when we're just talking about and passing out some of these phrases and words, we have to be super careful because I can tell you firsthand what the children are learning from it. And it's not what you think. Okay. So we want to make sure we help them slow down and see the power and value in the effort, not the speed, right? Because there's did I get it right? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, but can you explain to me why this is correct, right? How do you know? Again, what's another way that we can be sure that this makes sense? Y'all, so there's a number of things. So I want you again to think about it this way. We talked about the struggle earlier. It's a natural learning curve to life, like just living life out here. There's going to be some struggle. You're going to have some struggle sometimes. It's a natural part of the process. So for learning, it's no different. For growth, it's no different. For independence, for confidence, so many descriptions, it's no different. It should be expected. But what I'm challenging the adults to do, what I'm calling us all out on, is to make sure that we're starting with task / better yet, help them create goals. Yep, even for the summer. Then give them space. Yes, our support, but give them space, not your effort. I'm gonna say it again. Yes, we're helping them develop goals, summertime goals. Yes, CC. But we have to give them space and give them support, not your effort, not you doing. They have to do, y'all. They have to do so they can go through the steps, so they can remember. So if they miss something, right, they have to reflect back on, well, what did I do? Them reflecting back on what they did has a much higher recall than what did my mom press? What did she do? They don't know. They do not know. So these simple things, y'all, for some of your summer goal setting. Again, placing their own food order in person, not DoorDash. Okay, navigating to a destination. So even them reading, like I know we don't have MapQuest anymore, right? I grew up with MapQuest. We have Google Maps. Everybody has GPS in the car, everything. But having them actually pay attention and read, like turn the sound off. Let them navigate. Okay, it says we're going to turn right in zero point 0.3 miles, right? Use your place value in 0.3 of a mile. So maybe it's, more social, maybe swimming, writing, handwriting, and of course, math practice. We're bringing all these things into their space. Okay. So again, you all, so many resources. I put a number of things together for you, right? For the summertime, we talked about a few of them, the would you rather, some other sparks, I'm going to call it. We talked about the budgeting for a summer treat, another graph to track. We talked about the map out your mood, but tracking, we can track screen time by creating a graph. Again, what about them creating a Math in My World challenge where every day they make sure that they reflected on and they saw where math was in their world. How long did it take everyone to get ready to get out the door? What do we need to do to double this recipe? What if they did a pretend blueprint or slash, dependent, right, on what kind of space you're in? They can redesign their bedroom. So they're going to have to include measurements, maybe some little scale drawings, right? The model, the blueprints, budget. They're going to have to be creative in their design. What if they start a summer brain bank? So each week, right, they're learning like a new tip, a new strategy, but they're drawing it out, making a visual journal, right? You know your children's learning styles, lean into that, right? Some of them have to touch it, some of them see it, put it together. Personal growth and independence. They make their own appointments. They're talking and answering questions at the appointment, right? There's been a lot of jokes about it. And I'm always looking like, all right now, because have y'all seen some of these jokes on social media where the person is like 20 something, 30, and they're calling their mom like, Mama, what's my social? Mama, have I broken anything? Mom, like they don't know the answers to the questions at the doctor, but they haven't practiced. Clearly, they were there for all of their appointments. But when the questions were being asked, they weren't checked in. They were not, what I want to say, they weren't being engaged and they weren't made to engage either, right? So then when it's time for them to demonstrate, what practice have they had? And that's like the general summary for a lot of what's going on with youth things, that in these middle ages, these middle grades, these middle years, all the way up, y'all, we're missing our opportunities for them as adults. So we should be giving them opportunities to practice some of the things they're going to need, right, with support. So again, I say so at this age, we're giving more support, not our effort as much, not us doing, but the support. When they need to know maybe what the next step is, we can ask them a question, let them think about it, because there's a lot that they actually know, but they're not being challenged to show what they know. Okay, let's see what else. So that was to make their own appointments. Maybe plan and cook a family meal, y'all, from top to bottom. Just one, right? Maybe not the whole week. That'll be a little overwhelming, I think. But you know your child. So that would include the groceries needed. Right? We say making groceries in New Orleans. So what groceries we need to make, the budget, the time management. They can keep a goal journal. If these are the things I want to do this summer, right? We set these summertime goals. Let's reflect on it. Let's write about it. What about creating a routine? I'm saying a morning routine. Sometimes a lot of our young people need bedtime routines again, honestly. Like these are the official steps. Start winding yourself down, right? Literally for bed. So just a routine, just the planning of a routine, understanding how it should work, should flow, organizing an area of the house. All right. How how excited would we be about that as their adults? Writing a letter to their future self or a friend. Maybe they're a part of a service project, a weekly kindness challenge. Y'all, there's so many things. Screen free for an hour challenge. And y'all know the young people, yeah, when you put challenge on something, they do it. Did you know that? Like that's why these TikTok challenges are so popular, and some of them are absolutely crazy and dangerous. But something about the word challenge, and it's enticing. They do it, so we can put a positive spin, right? A more positive slant on challenges. Screen free hour. Maybe your child is more of a creative, right? So what if they created like a little mini podcast or video series talking about something they love, sports, science, anime, music, right? You can keep it tight. Maybe it's a YouTube channel that your family subscribe. Maybe it's just independent videos. They're putting it on a special place, a special link for families to go just to help protect with the safety, right? Maybe they can start a side hustle, babysitting, dog walking. A lot of them are making bracelets, doing all kind of things, you all. That includes math, right? Because it's basic math and marketing. What if someone wants to design the students may not know as much about magazines, the concept of a magazine, but same kind of thing like the blog post, right? A blog, a website, maybe a social media account about the issues that matter to them: identity, fashion, culture, tech, their feelings. A photo a day. And then at the end of the summer, we make the book, right? Where they actually have captions they put for each. Maybe there's a collage. Maybe there's some math infusions. Was there a shape that was more popular? What kind of angles did you notice? All these things, you all. So again, there's so much we can do with the don't we're not going to forget these years, right? So this is the last time we want to hear this referred to as the forgotten years, because these years are very, very important. Like these are the years that start to help to notch it up or stagnate and sometimes a plateau if we're not careful. So we're making sure that we're locked in at this age for these young people. So what I want you to do, y'all, is remember that, again, it's easy to feel like math or summertime, like it just, I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want them to be bored with these workbooks and things like that. But we, just like when we're in the classroom, right? Educators, when we're coached in the classroom, the questions we ask, I can never say this too many times. The questions that we ask make the biggest difference. They make the biggest difference. So you'll see a link that I have in the bio that talks about an AI-powered question and assessment toolkit. So a lot of things are done for you in terms of the prompts, the questioning tools to get them to really think and not just guess, not rush, but think. So you can grab the toolkit. It's still on pre-sale right now. All right. But also, I told you all that all of these things, there's so much I went through, and there's details that I left out. Some of the follow-up questions, things like that. You all, I'm going to make sure you get the resource from the list this evening if you're on the email list, right? So this is Summer Tween Math, bringing math into their space and some of the social and emotional needs and things to do to check in. Make sure that you're on the email list, right? Again, that link is also in the bio. Okay. Y'all, from tonight, what has been your biggest light bulb from the chat? What's been your biggest light bulb moment from the chat? Someone said it's critical to incorporate math into everyday life. It is, because there's a huge disconnect. There's a huge disconnect happening, right? Where it's like we do this at school and then at home we do something else. And again, being careful that that's not learned, because adults were like, this is what we do at work and this is what we do at home. But at these ages, the ages they are, they have to see a consistency consistently. They have to see the relevance. They have to make that connection. Okay. So, again, before we wrap, I just want to make sure you don't miss a few powerful next steps. So, again, if the conversation sparks something for you, or you're really finding value in how we're rethinking these questions and how to better support your tween and young teens this summer, make sure you join the email list because I'm going to send out that special recap with the summer ready math tasks, some goal ideas, and math moves that actually work. Also, later this week, we're popping out. I'm saying we're popping out. We're going to be in Austin ISD. And if you're in the area, so send us a message to at least say, hey, we'd love to connect, right? We're doing a presentation there. And before this month is out, y'all, make sure that you're signing up using the links. We have 2 powerful workshops that we want you to know about. So one is for educators. It's called the engagement equation. It's combining AI, SEL, and math, right? Our loves. We're combining AI, SEL, and math that matters, right? The mix of them, making sure we see how it matters, the impact that it has. That's happening on June 22nd. So then for parents and educators too, y'all come on. The webinar on June 29th, the very next Sunday, is called Decoded: What Your Child Hears When You Speak. Right, because some stuff is getting lost in translation. So we're gonna help you out. So the registration is open. Hit the link in bio. You can head to our page, or you can send us a message if you have any questions about it. But again, whether you're building better questions, we're making sure that we're supporting while we're building more confident kids and making sure learning is more connected. Understand that you're not doing it alone, okay? Until next time, keep asking those bold questions, keep reflecting, and very importantly, keep showing up. And I'll see you next week. Bye bye.